Dragon Ball Fighterz has a ton of cut content accessible by the game's hidden files. I'm talking unused dramatic finishes, outfits, stages, voice lines, even mechanics that were just never used. So in this video, I'm going to be going over everything I could find on the cut content of Dragon Ball Fighterz, and I found some pretty crazy shit, so make sure you stick around to the end. Also, huge shout out to the cutting room floor as they provided a lot of the information we're going over today, but without further ado, let's quit the yapping and get straight into it. In the files for Vegito Blue, there's a file named VTS_body, which contains an alternative model for Vegito in Super Saiyan rather than Blue. It's been in the game since 2018 when Vegito Blue released for DLC, and a lot of mods have used this official design from the files to make Super Vegito playable. I honestly don't know if this was meant to be an outfit for Vegito Blue, a part of his intro animation, or potentially even just for a dramatic finish, kind of like how Gogeta reverts to Super Saiyan against Janemba. But it's super disappointing as a Vegito fan to see this excluded from the game's official release, especially considering most of the hard work has already been done. They just need to make them playable. They should really just leave the whole creating a character but not making them accessible thing to Xenoverse. Probably my favorite inclusion out of this whole list. Inside Nappa's animation folder, there's a file that suggests he was going to have a dramatic finish against Fuse Zamasu. The file contains an asset list just referencing his dramatic finish against Yamcha, so we don't actually know what this could have looked like, but don't worry. I created this very accurate video that's going to demonstrate what this dramatic finish would look like if it was actually implemented.
Oh my god!
There's a screenshot in the files of the shop which shows a different Zenny icon than what we got in the final version of the game. As you can see, the Zenny logo is gold instead of silver. You'll also notice a yellow and purple ticket that were labeled Gotcha and Event tickets. But when you look for those tickets in the files, they actually have different designs than what's shown in the screenshot, suggesting that the screenshot was taken from a very early version of the game, hence why the Zenny and tickets look so different. I gotta be honest here, I'm pretty happy Fighterz didn't add a Gotcha mechanic. I have enough bad experience with Dragon Ball Gotcha games as it is. Let me know in the comments how you feel about this. The character trailer for Frieza, posted about a year before the game's release, teased a bit of a different intro animation than what we eventually got. The main difference being the pose that he does when he's charging up. Looking at both of them side by side, I gotta be honest, I kinda prefer the original one better. I understand why they changed it though, you gotta have Frieza do his iconic pose, but I don't know, something about the first one just looks more unique to me. But let me know in the comments which one you prefer. This one's pretty lame, so I'll be quick with it, but in the final version of the game, Goku Black's clones use the same color texture as Goku Black, just with different colors in unique places. However, there does exist a separate color texture specifically for the clones, which gives them a slightly darker look. And even though it was referenced, it technically was never used. So, the Dragon Ball Fighterz Japanese website shows incorrect color variations for Cooler. They all have the same orb color, which is incorrect, as in the game, the orb changes for nearly all 16 of his variations. So unfortunately, there doesn't outright exist a fully designed Whiskey outfit for Super Saiyan Blue Goku and Vegeta, but there is so much evidence in the files that they planned on doing this, at least at some point. First of all, the color textures for Super Saiyan Blue Goku and Vegeta clearly show the Whiskey color scheme. Also within the texture files, there's assets that show Whis' signature outright for both characters. But wait, there's even more. There's an unused cookie design of Super Saiyan Blue Goku in his Whiskey outfit. This of course was for Fat Boo's level 3 Super, where he turns the opponent into a cookie. It really sucks we didn't at least see them included in some capacity in the final version of the game, especially because I really like the outfits, so it sucks to see them kind of forgotten about across all Dragon Ball media. During the closed beta for Dragon Ball Fighterz, Super Saiyan Goku's Color 2 looked very similar to his manga colors, rather than the actual Color 2 we got for the launch of the game. It looked nearly identical to Color 59, which we would get a little later on into the game's release, but it's not the exact same thing. Looking at them side by side, you can tell there's a lot more detail in the shadows in Color 59, compared to the original. Super Saiyan Vegeta also had a different color too for the closed beta, but it wasn't of his manga colors, rather this. And I gotta be honest, I have no idea what this is a reference to, but it still looks pretty cool. There's some incomplete textures for Jaren that were found in his colors 13 and 14 folders, and from the little that we can see, it doesn't seem like it's referencing anything significant. What I found interesting is that currently in the game, Jaren doesn't have a color 13 or 14, but does have colors 15 and 16. So when going through all of his alternative colors, it literally just goes from like 12 straight to 15. I'm thinking maybe they were trying to rush his release, so they just decided to cut 2 of these color variations to get him out sooner. And honestly, it's really not that big of a deal. It's 2 color variations that probably weren't even a reference to anything. In the files, there exists a model for Kid Trunks and Super Saiyan rather than base. Now this model would have most likely just been used for a story mode cutscene, so it's nothing too significant, but it's still pretty cool. It would have been even cooler though if they found out a way to implement it in a dramatic finish, kinda like how they used Goten's Super Saiyan design for the Family Kamehameha dramatic finish. For the official release of Fighterz, Gotenks' level 1 super, the Ghost Kamikaze attack, uses a Super Saiyan 3 design for the Ghost, but there does exist just a regular Super Saiyan variation for them as well. Typically the design for Gotenks' Ghost will be based on what form he's in, so for example if Gotenks is in Super Saiyan 3, then the Ghost will also be Super Saiyan 3, or if he's in Super Saiyan, the Ghost will just be Super Saiyan then. So it's interesting to see that there was a Super Saiyan design for the Ghost, and it makes me wonder if maybe at some point Super Saiyan Gotenks was going to be playable. Piccolo's cape was intended to be used for Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, maybe just as a part of his intro, part of a dramatic finish, or even as an accessory. But you can tell they decided not to do this pretty early on because the design is nowhere close to being finished. And on top of that, the animation folder for this accessory is completely empty. As the name suggests, there's a sandbox stage that the devs most likely used for just testing basic game mechanics. There's 4 buildings from Namek, and when you use a smash attack, it'll actually take you to Namek, but the destructive finish is in space. The stage is also very similar to the Galactic Arena, as they both have 2 mirror monitors of the player's screen, and initially even had the exact same end screen camera angle. This could potentially mean that the sandbox served as a sort of a precursor for the Galactic Arena. Found in the character's common folders, there's 3 files showing what looks to be potential scrap designs for Goku, Vegeta, and Piccolo. There's also names with them, and I can definitely tell why they didn't decide to use these names, as Super Goku and Super Vegeta as a name for Super Saiyan Goku and Super Saiyan Vegeta could definitely cause confusion, as not only is Super a potential reference to a character from, Dragon Ball Super, but also Super Vegeta is a different transformation. There's a screenshot from an early version of the credits showing a completely different looking Super Saiyan Goku and Piccolo. I actually really like this Super Saiyan Goku design. It looks very unique and different from any other Goku design we've had in any Dragon Ball media. But of course they probably changed it because they wanted Goku to look a little bit more anime accurate. I may have over-exaggerated a bit with Piccolo. He doesn't look all that different, but you can tell some of the colors that he has on his character are a bit brighter in the screenshot. And since we're on the topic of scrapped character designs, for the sandbox stage we talked about earlier, there's a stage select image for it. It's actually concept art of the World Tournament, and despite the horrible quality, you can actually make out a different Super Saiyan Goku design than what we got in the official game. It's just concept art though, so it's definitely possible this was just for artistic sake, but like I said, I still wanted to include it because it is a different design technically. There's a fully designed alternative model for Dragon Ball Super Broly, both pre and post power-up, where he looks to be in his base form rather than Akari. There is definitely a good chance this was just intended to be used in his intro animation, where he would transform from base, as a lot of other characters do in their intro animation. But because they made a model for it post power-up, which obviously if it was just for his intro animation, they wouldn't need to do that, I wonder if this could have actually been meant for something else. I love Dragon Ball Fighterz. It's a super fun game, but one aspect that was really lacking for me was the lack of character customization. I mean, don't get me wrong, different colors are cool, especially when some of the colors are references to other things, but comparatively to the other Dragon Ball games that have released, it's just not that much. Turns out, at some point, there was consideration for a costume mechanic in the game, as there's a costume switch icon that's been in the files since day 1 of the game's release. And even when they added an alternative outfit for Videl, this icon was still not used. It would have been so cool if they added this, and I think it's definitely possible some of the cut outfits we mentioned earlier could have been planned for this mechanic. Alright, this is the final entry for the video, and I know voice lines don't sound too interesting, but what the characters actually say in their unused voice lines do hint at potential cut super attacks. So let's go ahead and play the important voice lines, and then we'll talk about them one by one.
See you try times 10! Ka, me, ha, me, ha! 10 times Kamehameha! You're the best, Vegeta.
So for GT Goku, the only time we actually see him use Super Saiyan 4 is during his level 3 Super for Dragon Fist. However, based on what we just heard, it is possible he could have also used Super Saiyan 4 while doing either a Kamehameha or a times 10 Kamehameha. And there's a lot of Super Saiyan 4 Goku voice lines. I wonder if at some point they were actually going to make him playable, which looking back on it, it's kind of crazy to think they didn't. But anyways, next up is Trunks.
Burning attack! Gallic gun! Final flash!
I really like the idea of having a father-son Gallic gun for Trunks' level 3, so maybe the fact that he has Gallic gun as one of his unused voice lines suggests that they could have considered this at some point. I envision something very similar to Ultimate Gohan's level 3, where if you have certain people on your team, then the animation will look different. Like for example, if Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta is present, then obviously he would be there to do the Gallic gun with him. And then finally, we have an unused voice line for Baby.
Big Bang Attack!
This voice line was most likely to be used for Baby's level 1 super attack, and while clearly his level 1 resembles a Final Flash, so you're probably wondering how the hell would he use a Big Bang Attack voice line for Final Flash, in the English and Japanese anime for GT, the attack was actually misnamed as Big Bang Attack. So it looks like they nearly made the same mistake, or they were just trying to stick to the source material, which I'd say they made the right decision not doing this, as the source material was wrong. But that's all I got for you today. There was a lot of really interesting information, and I hope you guys had fun watching this video. If you want to see similar style videos like this to other Dragon Ball games like Xenoverse, Sparking Zero, Raging Blast, let me know in the comments because I'm totally open to doing those. And yeah, that's all I got for you. Catch you in the next one.